Good morning and welcome to today's reflection. As we journey from Ascension to Pentecost, starting today, Holy Trinity services and reflections will be looking at Thy Kingdom Come, something that was initiated by the Archbishops of Canterbury and York way back in 2016. The idea was to encourage Christians to pray especially during the period from Ascension to Pentecost. The readings are all taken from John's first letter from the New Testament. Now, today's reading is chapter 1, verses 1 to 2. Now, while it's always a good thing to start anything at the beginning, in the beginning are the first words of the Bible, while the words in the beginning was the Word starts off John's Gospel. This letter starts off the same way. That which was from the beginning we have heard, we have seen with our own eyes, which we have looked at and our hands have touched. This we proclaim concerning the word of life. The life appeared, we have seen it and testified to it, and we proclaim to you the eternal life which was with the Father and has appeared to us. This is the word of the Lord. Now, while John writes here of things he himself has seen and heard, things weren't always so straightforward for him, especially for the disciples at the time of Jesus' ascension. After all, they'd only just become used to seeing the resurrected Jesus when he again disappeared from their sight as he ascended back to God the Father. Now, angels don't tend to have the best lines in the Bible. Gabriel, for example, appeared to the teenager Mary in her home in Palestine and tells her, "Fear not," before telling her probably the most outrageous thing about her about to become pregnant. The shepherds outside Bethlehem, a group not known for their religious devotion, are told about the good news of great joy. The ascension story is exactly the same. The angels, young men in white we are told, appear and ask the disciples, "Why are you standing here looking up at the sky?" Now surely at least one of the disciples must have thought to himself, "Why do you think we are here? In the last 6 weeks, our world has been turned upside down. We have watched him die, met him alive again, and now we are watching him disappear again." You can almost feel sympathy for the disciples here. Now at this time you could easily imagine how they must have obviously been confused, uncertain, perhaps even fearful as they considered the enormity of the task they'd just been given, that the mission of Jesus was to continue through them. Now, when John wrote this letter, one of the arguments he was making was against those who ridiculed the notion not only of who Jesus was, but, like today, that he was only a figment of their imagination. Here he was saying he was present when Jesus revealed himself to the world as the Messiah. He was also writing this letter to counter the false teaching that was present among the people he cared about. He had heard Jesus speak. He had watched him perform miracles. He was eyewitness to the remarkable events of Jesus' life, while those who opposed him were not. So as we journey from Ascension to Pentecost, we should try to follow the example of those first disciples, especially in the way that they prayed as they had never prayed before. The theme this year from Thy Kingdom Come is praying and living the kingdom, which invites us to pray for others, to love thy neighbour through practical acts of love and service, which coincidentally played a big part in last week's coronation of King Charles III, when he encouraged us all to volunteer with any of our local charities. There are many local charities doing much in the way of helping those who are our neighbours, such locally as Compassion Acts, Formby Befriending Scheme, Home Start. Now, most of us understand that the most important things in life aren't things, after all. They are the relationships we have. We are by nature social creatures, never very good when we are alone, because, I believe, God has put a desire for relationships in every one of us. A desire he intended to be in relationships with other people, but most of all, a relationship with him. This is summed up in the words of the Old Testament prophet Micah, who told us what God requires: to act justly, to love mercy, and walk humbly with God. We hear the same words in the New Testament from Jesus. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is equally important. Love your neighbour as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on those two commandments. What we tend to forget, that with relationships come responsibility. We also need to be more responsible for the creation that God has placed in our care, not only for the creation around us, but also for those, whoever our neighbour might be. And I want to finish with two quotes from two well-known people. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? That was Martin Luther King Jr. And service to others is the rent that you pay for your room here on earth. That was Muhammad Ali. So whatever you're doing for the rest of this week, whatever you're doing today, think of your neighbour, think what you can do, and think what we can do as a community. And if we do it with a smile, then what else can we ask for? Bye for now.